it was really, really cool to kind of like realize that, you know, outside of the history that you have with Adam, just your story about voiceover and the things that you do. So give a once over here of what you've, you know, you
Cole's
guys,
notes?
the Cole's notes of you guys coming through college, but not so much on the Adam side, but just what you have done personally out of the voiceover work.
Well, I mean, that's where we met. I mean, both of us went to Humber College for radio broadcasting, and we kind of gravitated because of our sort of nerdy love for wrestling. And I had no idea at that time. So I think it was the first day I learned that Adam was he was an indie wrestler, and that's when he was working with Sully's Gym with Ron Hutchison and Sweet
Gotcha.
Daddy Siki. And so all of a sudden I'm like, we're gonna be friends, because like wrestling nerds all migrate to each other.
They really do.
Really do. And so, yeah, whereas Adam always had a really great voice, and I always figured Adam was going to be, he was, you know, but he loved wrestling. So he went
KRP. You know?
I've still got, it's funny because I still have old cassette tapes from when we were in college, when we used to have to do shows and stuff like that. And one of his names that he used back then was Adam Jericho, which it's hilarious. So, but he went and did his wrestling, and he actually, I think his first match with the WWE was at Cops Coliseum I think it was just after we graduated, or just before we graduated in '96. And I think that was his tryout match, or one of his tryout matches against Bob Holly at Cops. So he did wrestling. I stayed with radio, and I worked, you know, up north, Elliott Lake was where I started. And I worked in Woodstock, Ontario, at a great little station for a couple months. Then I wound up in Hamilton, went out to Kitchener and helped start up a great radio station out there with a bunch of really amazing talent who are now, you know, really big. Roz and Mocha of Roz and Mocha fame, he started with us out at the Beat. I mean, he'd started elsewhere before, but that was where he really got his stuff. So I was a radio guy. I worked in production. I never had like the really great Rodney radio voice, because when I started in the 90s, everybody had, like, the joke was, you know, the guys that had the big voices carried their balls in a bag beside them. And mine were up in my throat, it sounded like. So I was a production guy. That's why I can do all the audio stuff, you know, things like for podcasts and that, like, that was my first gig. But I learned pretty quickly on that, you know, a lot of the jocks when I started all had the same read, and then salespeople would come to me and be like, yeah, you know, I want to do this. I want to do something different because, you know, and so I was the guy who just started doing, you know, I would be the character voice guy, or I would be like not the jock voice. And so doing that all those years, I ended up just doing a whole whack ton of commercials over the years. And then I met a guy at the station in Kitchener, a guy by the name of Jason Laborde, who I owe a great amount to, because he introduced me to my first agent. And he actually introduced me to the whole world of voiceover. And that was back in 2004, I think I got my first agent. And the first gig I ever did was for Muchmusic, back in the days when they still played videos. Actually, I don't know how many videos they played at that point, but they did a lot of original programming, you know, much Love and Hate 2005. And, you know,
and how competitive was voiceover work at that point?
At that point, I joke at the fact, because now, you know, anybody that's got, you know, $200, a USB microphone, and
any asshole sitting on a porch in Cloverdale,
can get into voiceover now. I mean, there are places online where you can sign up and, you know, be part of a pool of, you know, thousands of people. Back then, I say it was almost like a speakeasy. Like, you had to know somebody who knew somebody who robbed somebody who knew the knock to get in. And that's kind of where it was originally. But still, there was like a really small pool of talent that always seemed to do the same stuff. One of those guys who, you know, at first I used to like shake my fist. One of the guys I worked with, he was also a voice actor, worked in radio with me. And we used to like, and his name was Jamie Watson. And Jamie Watson is the voice of comedy channel CTV, or it used to be the Comedy Network, but now it's CTV Comedy. He's the voice of that. You'll recognize him. I met him at a party once, and he turned out to be like the most nicest, amazing, super creative guys, and really was one of those first sort of like hey man, if you have a demo, like I can, I can shop it around for you. Like I've got an I'll play it. And he was really, really cool. So back then, yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of people, but it was,
Sure.
as years have gone on, the cost to getting into it is way cheaper. I mean, back in the days, you used to go to a studio all the time. Now I work from a
But
home studio.
you built one at home. I mean,
Yeah, man.
I see it now, like as I'm fishing around YouTube and looking for, I'm trying to just do the, I bought the mic, I got the Zoom H6. I'm trying to make it sound as good as possible, but I still send it to you. The Zoom is kind of cool because I can come out of it. I think it's at 44 kilohertz right now it's 44 coming into the computer, but I mean, I think it sounds relatively good when I do it at 96. It sounds pretty good.
And 96 is overkill for the average person. Now we're getting really super nerdy.
Yeah, without people, like, we're entertaining ourselves now. But
yeah, for the average person, 44 is good. But that's what it is now. Like the entry, like the cost, like the price point entry to get into stuff like this now is fairly inexpensive if you just want to start. I mean, years ago, another guy, a lot of my sort of, hands helping up over the years were guys that I started with in radio.
Yeah.
And it was another producer of my buddy of mine, Carson Manette, who he said, Mikey, he says, when you start making money in this, like invest in your gear, invest in your space, because that's the stuff that as you sort of progress your career, it's going to come back and pay back in spades. And it has. So over the years, I've gone from working in a closet, then building a bigger space, and then, moving to the place we're at now and transforming a bigger space that,
it's funny because you used to post these videos of like being on vacation and having to scramble to a closet
to
do something. Yeah. And I remember when I did the first podcast, I did it on my phone. Right. Yeah. And I was like, let's see if we can rescue it. It was just on SoundCloud. It was on the HD recorder. The HD recorder in this is pretty great, but I was like, you can tell it was a phone. Then I bought a little preamp, but then I remember I was like in a scenario where I had to jump into a podcast pretty quick, and I was like, a mic would just go into a closet. I needed a quiet space, so I did something on my phone in a closet.
Yeah.
As an interview, and I was like, okay, I understand why Mike had to jump all of a sudden into something and get something close to.
For what I mean, for people that don't really know, like what I do. I mean, I don't have a set number of hours. I mean, there's a couple of clients that I work for that I have set times every week that will either go down to Toronto to Corus Key, like the big headquarters of Corus, or I'll just record stuff from home. But it's never like a set time. So when I want to go on vacation, I don't get paid if I don't work. So
sure.
I would take my travel gear. Yeah, I would take travel gear. So we would go to Florida, and that's when I'd be doing videos where I'm sitting in the back of my rental car as like Carolyn and the kids are in Disney. I will leave Disney, go out to the parking lot, and huddle up in the backseat of my car with a microphone and headphones. And I've got, like back then it was an old flip phone that I was talking to the client, and I would record in the back of my car because the acoustics of a car are actually not bad. Like
I've done one in a car. I think I did one with Dean Blundell as his guest. And I was in my car, and then I did it into the Zoom and then sent him the file. And anyways, it's funny because it's just interesting how I'm learning to go through this thing. When I'm traveling and I'm on tour, I've always got my stuff set up all the time.
Yeah. And that's
because you could get a text from anybody that's like, hey, if you got 20 minutes, I can jump on with you. And I don't really ask a lot of people. I kind of try to plan them out a little bit, but every now and again, something like today pops up where we're like, hey, let's jump on and do something.
Yeah, man.
And then all of a sudden it's like, I need an hour. It's like, or I need 45 minutes to get set up. And it's like, well, I've lost a window. So I always have to be ready. So
you bring the travel gear. Although over the years, I've lightened up a bit, and I've worked with some really like amazing, clients that get it. Like they know that, hey man, take some time, go on a vacation.
Sure. And that's the way it should be.
But I still get the itch, and I like to bring my gear with me because you never know, like recording in a closet, not a problem.
Thanks for stopping by, friends, to the Brenton on Tour podcast channel on YouTube. Coffee, music, travel, life, all of those things. One page, lots of guests, lots of chatter. We talk about all of it. If you like it, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment. I'll get back to you. Thanks, friends. See you next time.